They thought he was trespassing. They thought they had the power to call the cops and kick him off. What they didn't know was that the land they were trying to claim wasn't even theirs. It was his family's, and the truth would flip the entire story upside down. But here's the thing, when the police showed up, they didn't ask questions. They didn't look at the paperwork. They looked at him. And from that moment on, the story was no longer about property. It was about power. This isn't just about one black man camping by a lake. This is about history, race, and the never-ending fight to be seen as belonging, even when you have the proof in your hand. What happened on this quiet ranch lake is bigger than one confrontation. It's a reflection of what happens across America every single day. And before you think this is just another neighbor dispute, stay with me, because the ending will make you question how many times this has already happened without the cameras rolling. So let's set the stage. Imagine this: you own land, not just some tiny backyard plot, but acres. Acres your family has held onto for years, maybe even generations. A lake sits right in the middle, quiet and beautiful, the kind of place you go when you need peace. Now imagine driving up one weekend, setting up camp with a tent and a cooler, ready to enjoy the stillness, only for strangers to roll up, clipboards in hand, telling you that you're trespassing, telling you that you don't belong on the very land that has your family's name on the deed. That's what happened here. An HOA, Homeowners Association, decided to flex their power. But here's the kicker: this lake wasn't theirs to control. The HOA had expanded, pushed fences, and built paths around the lake without ever checking the real property lines. For years, they acted like they owned it, until one day the real owner showed up. And instead of admitting the mistake, instead of apologizing, they doubled down. They called the cops. Let's pause right there, because this isn't just about one phone call. This is about why the call was made. Ask yourself this: if it had been someone else, someone who looked like the HOA board members, would they have dialed the police so quickly? Or was the decision fueled by something else, something deeper? Because here's the reality. In America, black landowners have always faced this silent but brutal battle. You can buy land, pay taxes, keep the deed, but still, someone can look at you and think, you don't belong here. And in this case, it was more than just words. It turned into flashing lights, uniforms, and the weight of the law being used against the very person it was supposed to protect. If you've ever dealt with an HOA, you already know how extreme they can be. Too many weeds in your yard, they fine you. Paint your house the wrong shade of beige, they fine you. Put up a basketball hoop, they fine you. But what happens when HOAs move past grass height and parking rules and step into policing people? That's where this story begins to cross the line. This HOA had been operating under the assumption that the lake was theirs. They told new homeowners they had access. They handed out rule books about fishing, camping, and swimming. They patrolled it like security guards. But here's what they didn't tell their neighbors: they never legally owned that water. It belonged to a black family ranch. So picture this: the man arrives with gear, tent, firewood, maybe a small boat. He's not bothering anyone. He's not trespassing. He's on his family's land doing what his people have done for years. That's when the HOA shows up, clipboard in hand, looking important. They start asking questions. Do you live here? Do you have permission? This lake is for residents only. He laughs it off at first, pulling out his ID, explaining it's his property. He even tries to show them the deed he carries, just in case. But the HOA doesn't want to hear it. To them, it doesn't matter what the paperwork says. What matters is what they see. And what they see is a black man who, in their minds, doesn't belong. So they make the call. When the cops roll up, everything changes. Now it's not just neighbors with opinions, it's armed officers with authority. And instead of coming in neutral, instead of mediating, they come in already siding with the HOA. They start questioning him, demanding proof, asking for ID, asking why he's there. Not once do they question the HOA members. Not once do they say, "Hold up, whose land is this really?" And here where it gets messy. Because this man knows his rights. He knows his land. But he also knows the history. He knows that arguing too hard, raising his voice too much, could turn a property dispute into something far worse. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, when the man pulls out the papers, when he shows the deed, the surveys, the proof, what happens next will shock you. Because instead of backing down, the HOA doubles down. And what the cops say in response, that's the part that changes everything. So here we are, papers in hand. The man lays everything out, the deed, the property survey, tax receipts, cold, hard evidence. His family owns the land. End of story, right? Wrong. Instead of apologizing, instead of stepping back, the HOA doubles down. They tell the cops, "These documents can't be real. This is HOA property." He's lying. Now stop for a second and think about that. Imagine standing there, proving without a doubt that the land is yours and still being treated like a criminal. That's not just disrespect. That's the weight of systemic racism showing itself in plain daylight. And here, where things get dangerous, the officer looks at the papers, then looks at the man, and instead of siding with the evidence, he sides with the narrative. He says, "You need to leave until this is sorted out." Let that sink in. Leave your own property. Be treated like a trespasser on the land your family has owned longer than the HOA has even existed. And this right here is the heart of the struggle. It's not just about property lines. It's about who gets believed, who gets protected, and who gets pushed aside. And let me ask you, what would you do? If this was you, standing on your own land, would you walk away? Would you risk escalation with the cops? Or would you lawyer up and fight every step of the way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is the reality too many black landowners face. Now, we can't ignore the bigger picture here. This kind of conflict isn't new. For generations, black families who managed to buy and hold onto land have been targeted. Land stolen through shady deeds, court rulings, intimidation, even outright violence. Think about places like Bruce's Beach in California, snatched from a black family in the 1920s, only acknowledged a century later. The pattern is clear. Ownership doesn't always equal protection. And this HOA situation, it's a modern version of the same story, the same disbelief, the same pushback. The same attempt to erase rightful ownership by pretending it doesn't exist. So back at the lake, things get tense. The man refuses to leave. Calm, steady, but firm, he tells the officers, "This is my land, my family's land. You can't remove me from what is legally mine." The HOA board members are furious. They whisper, make phone calls, try to intimidate him. One even threatens to sue for illegal camping. But here where the story flips. The man doesn't back down. Instead, he calls his lawyer. He tells the officers they're about to be hit with a lawsuit if they try to remove him. He lays it all out. The HOA has been trespassing for years, building trails and docks on land they don't own. If anyone should be leaving, it's them. And suddenly, the energy shifts. The officers realize they're standing in the middle of a legal nightmare. Within weeks it explodes. Lawyers get involved. Surveyors confirm the truth. The lake is part of the man's family property, not the HOA's, never was. The HOA has to backtrack, but they don't go quietly. They try to claim easement rights. They say homeowners had traditional use. They try every trick in the book to keep control. But the law is the law, and the land is his. Here's the wildest part. It turns out the HOA had been charging fees to homeowners for lake use. For decades, they built docks, held events, even sold fishing permits, all on land they never owned. So when the man presses charges, the HOA isn't just embarrassed, they're exposed. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear what happened when he pushed for back payments. Click here. You won't believe how much money was at stake. This story isn't just about one ranch lake. It's about power, perception, and prejudice. Because the truth is, without the deed, without the courage to stand his ground, this man could have been erased. Just another black family pushed off land they rightfully owned. And let's be real, if he didn't know his rights, if he had just left quietly that day, the HOA would have kept going, kept controlling land that was never theirs. That's why this matters, because it's not about camping, it's not about rules, it's about survival. So let's wrap this up. A black man camps on his family's ranch lake. HOA members call the cops, insisting he's trespassing. Cops show up, take the HOA's side, and demand he leave. He refuses, shows proof, and flips the script. Legal battles follow, exposing the HOA for trespassing, overreaching, and profiting off land they never owned. It's a story of resistance, of holding ground, of refusing to be erased. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the cop went too far by telling him to leave even after seeing the deed? Should HOAs even have that much power in the first place? And if this happened to you, would you fight back or would you walk away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you got value from this story, subscribe. And don't miss the next case that'll leave you speechless.